Live now to Premier Daniel Andrews, who's speaking at Bairnsdale in Victoria about the bushfires there. Let's take a look.
And Harriet Shing, our local member for Eastern Victoria. We've just been down to the Bairnsdale Relief Centre, and off the top, can I just say how impressive the team of people supporting complete strangers and also supporting neighbours and friends. They are a truly impressive team. Salvation Army, DHHS staff, all our firefighting agencies, those providing peer support, St Vincent de Paul, the list goes on, and they're all there providing care and comfort to those who've lost everything and those who can't get back into their local community to see the extent of damage to their property. Now, I'm going to make a couple of general comments, and then I'm going to throw to Andrew, and he can speak in more detail about the fires in East Gippsland, but also the stuff that's going on in the northern part of the state as well. First point I want to make is that this is a particularly unique set of circumstances. We've got people that are isolated in the middle of the fire. We've got people who have left and can't get back in. We've got fires that are not out, and we have got some very significant weather coming our way on Friday and Saturday. That makes this a long and dangerous and complex fight, a long and dangerous and complex process to support everybody who's been impacted by it. I want to thank the community and thank everybody who's been touched by these fires for the patience they've shown, for the way they're looking out for each other, for the fact that they appreciate and understand that this is not like other fire grounds or other bushfires where we've had fire move through, devastate a community. The fire is then essentially out, and you can then begin the next process of cleaning up, recovery, rebuilding. This is very different to that. This is going to be an active fire and a very challenging and complex environment for weeks, and therefore we have to do things a bit differently. For instance, today, I don't know that we've ever done this before, using Victorian assets. We've got choppers taking 90 firefighters out of the Mallacoota area. They can't be removed any other way. We're essentially doing a shift change by the air. We've never done that before, getting firefighters that are essentially isolated in that Mallacoota community out and fresh teams going in. That's not something we've done before, and it's just one example of how complex and how challenging these East Gippsland fires are now and will be for a considerable period of time. Andrew will talk a little bit more about the fires in the north, Corryong and that Walwa fire, which is a very real challenge for us, and the number of new starts that occurred after midnight last night. Just finally from me, in terms of before we go to Andrew, Lisa, and then we'll take any questions you've got, just in terms of some sort of nuts and bolts issues, I just want to reassure everybody. I spoke with the Prime Minister yesterday, working together very well. There's a lot of different things we can do, and I think all those things are occurring quickly. To give you an example, I can confirm for you that without any hold-up, without any bureaucratic red tape, all the necessary steps have been completed to make sure that grants are now available to those who have lost everything and those who are out of their homes. Lisa can take you through the nature of those grants, but there's a number of trigger points, and we've been able to get all of that done without any time at all, really. That's happened quite quickly, and that's a testament to the fact that all agencies at all levels of government are working together as closely as we possibly can. I've been in contact with mayors in the 3 local government areas affected by these fires, offering to them any and all support that they need, this now and obviously in the weeks and months ahead. So this is still very dangerous. It is ever changing. It is complex. I know everyone wants it to be simple. Of course we do too, but it is not. This is a complex set of fires, and the coming days and weeks are going to be very challenging. And we've not seen this before. We've not seen this for a very long time, if perhaps ever. And on that basis, it's going to test all of us, but we are equal to that challenge. And I again take this opportunity to thank every single person, career, volunteer, every agency, every charity, everyone who is doing such a great job supporting people who are so vulnerable. But I must say, spirits were high. People were, I think, buoyed by the fact that they had support and that the systems are working as they should, and certainly at the Bairnsdale Relief Centre, where we just toured a couple of minutes ago. I might now ask Andrew just to give you a few more of the ops details in terms of fires that are going and what we expect on the weekend, and Lisa can add to those comments, and then we're happy to take any questions you've got.
Thanks, Premier. In March last year, so not even 12 months ago, we had significant fires where we lost properties at Mount Mercer and Bunkers Hill. We're only on 1st of January, so we've got 3 months of hot weather to come. So we do have a dynamic and a dangerous fire situation across the state. What we've seen up to this point of time is more than 500,000 hectares burnt in Victoria and predominantly in the East Gippsland area. So with the East Gippsland fires, we know that what we used to talk about as 3 fires have now become 1. And now you add that Mallacoota fire into the mix, there's a significant amount of fire activity across all of East Gippsland. What we have up in the northeast of the state, what we're referring to as the Corryong fire, is a fire that started on the other side of the border and then on that hot northerly travelled down and impacted on Cudgeware, where we believe we've lost 10 to 15 structures, and then continued to move into Corryong and past Corryong. Some really great work to basically save the town of Corryong, and additionally some great work to open up that road really quickly that enabled a convoy of 68 vehicles to get people out of Corryong. Our concerns up in the Corryong area, again, there's another fire that started up in New South Wales. It's further to the east, but it's also been travelling in a southerly direction. So the Corryong fire is over 100,000 hectares. This other fire is about 98,000 hectares. And there's a potential for them to come together today. So we're certainly planning on potential impacts in relation to communities between those 2 fires. So again, just highlighting how dynamic and dangerous the fire situation still is here in Victoria. Along with those structure losses up in that particular fire, we've been made aware that there's potentially significant stock losses and fencing and pasture and everything that goes with that. So it's not just about houses. It's also about those parts of local business, of the agricultural sector that are so important, and that's their pasture. So we've got those fires up in the northeast. So we've got the going fires down here in East Gippsland. What we've seen over the last 24 hours is a significant number of lightning strikes up in the Alpine region, so Mount Hotham, Mount Buller, into Jamison. So we've across the state at the moment, the last time I looked, we had more than 45 going fires, with a lot of those being those new fires in that part of the state. We're doing absolutely what we can to round as many of those up as quickly as we can, because as we know, we're warming up into Friday, and then what we term a spike day. So Saturday is looking like a high-risk day for us again. At this stage, it looks like we've got a fire danger rating of very high across the whole state. We might have some of the weather districts up into severe. So Saturday is a significant day for us. So it's about what we can do to enable us to be in as best position as we can for Saturday, because with those new fires, if we get a run on them, what we'll find is that they will be travelling down and they will join up with the East Gippsland fires. What we saw with the Mallacoota fire also, it took a run last night, and there's a finger of that fire that's now pushed over the border along the highway into New South Wales. So it is dynamic, there is a lot going on, and we're very, very focused on the fire, because our primary responsibility is to protect communities and to save lives. At the same time, seeing as we've had such significant fires, equally important for us is the support we provide community. What we do in terms of supporting those isolated communities. So we're very, very focused on that at the moment. We know in Mallacoota there's about 4,000 people, and again, thank you to the people of Mallacoota who followed the instructions, listened to the CFA, and that were well protected by those CFA strike teams that did such a fantastic job in that area. We know at Genoa there's about 100 people that have been isolated as a result of the fire that went through Mallacoota, and the fact now we've got fire impacting the Princes Highway to the east or to the north into New South Wales, and naturally between Can River and Genoa there's been significant impact on the Princes Highway, and the briefing we've just received from the Incident Control Centre is that there's every chance there'll be further impact from our existing fires onto the Princes Highway. So what we're doing in terms of assets, we've moved some of our bigger helicopters, and as you've heard from the Premier, we'll be using some of those helicopters for a shift changeover of firefighters in and out of Mallacoota today. We'll use those helicopters to get into communities so we can listen to what they have to say, what they need. We know, for example, with Mallacoota, we know they've got a significant amount of water, but we know we need to get supplies to them. So there was a police boat that actually came down from New South Wales yesterday, and it brought in a small amount of water, but it was a nice touch to show that we're all in this together. The Victoria Police, Water Police out of Paynesville, a boat should have gone in there by now taking in 1.6 tonne of water. Again, at about this time, we're loading up a large barge in Melbourne, and it will have food and water and 30,000 litres of fuel that it will be making its way also to Mallacoota. It will have supplies for about 2 weeks. You've probably heard mention about the support of the Australian Defence Force. So when we forecast what could have happened on Monday and Tuesday, we did some thinking and some planning in relation if we had isolated communities. So one of the requests we put to the Commonwealth or to Emergency Management Australia and the ADF was about if we had isolated communities on the coast, how are we going to get them out if we don't have road access? One way would be by air, but as we know, smoke can be a real issue. The other way would be by sea. So as a result of that, there's been a commitment from the Australian Defence Force to move some naval assets towards Mallacoota. Similarly, they're also moving in some larger helicopters. So 2 Black Hawks will be arriving in East Sale this afternoon and a larger Taipan helicopter later today. They will be able to, the 2 Black Hawks will be able to fly later today until 8:30. And then they need to rest. They give us some additional capability though, because they are also able to fly at night. Although not dropping water on fires at night, they will give us a great intelligence capability overnight. Along with that, there'll be 2 of the large Chinooks, so the very heavy lift helicopters that are making their way down from Townsville, and they'll be down on Friday to support us. So a significant ADF contingent based at East Sale supporting the efforts down here in this part of the state. We know we've got a long way to go with this. We've got a huge team that's doing absolutely everything it can to keep everyone safe, from our firefighters and emergency services out on the ground. You've heard mention of the Red Cross, the Victorian Council of Churches, government departments, the wonderful people working in incident control centres, the regional control centres, the state control centre. We're all focused on keeping our communities safe from existing and potential fires that we might see, but also to support our communities that are now heavily impacted.
Lisa.
So yesterday, the Federal Minister, David Littleproud, and myself, we triggered what is the Stated National Disaster Recovery Agreement. What that sees is initially, as of right now, in relief centres and also available through councils, is the relief grant. So this is for people who have been dislocated from their homes and they need immediate financial support, and that is up to about $1,900 available for families. It also triggers the re-establishment grants for families that qualify for that, up to around $42,500 to help with clean-up and rebuilding. It also triggers other arrangements. So, for example, how we fund 50-50 some of the costs around immediate relief and support, as well as road rebuilding, bridge rebuilding. You've heard today that we've got significant challenges on the Princess Highway, which unfortunately is the only access out of this area. Although we've been able to open it from Lake Tyers and also a little bit today from Orbost, the eastern part of that road is in very bad shape. So significant work and effort will need to go into that, let alone the fact that fire still continues to threaten that highway. I think it's really important to remember at the moment is that we've got communities who are very traumatised, families who don't know whether they've lost their property or not, firefighters who are still very isolated, who have lived through very severe and challenging conditions, and I heard some of those stories today. So as we go through this, there will be people who are sad, who are anxious, who are traumatised as a result of experiencing what is some of the worst conditions anyone can ever experience. And we're going to need to make sure that not only as we meet people's basic needs from food and water, that we're also providing support to their mental health as well and their physical health. And we'll be looking at how we can do that as quickly as possible. Also say, this weekend, I hate to be standing here saying this, and I know for East Gippsland residents have heard this a lot over a lot of years, but this weekend will be a dangerous weekend again with these fires. We will send out very clear messages to people. We will, where people can leave the area, we'll be making sure they're clear about that. Where they're in isolated areas, we'll be providing them with clear messaging about where they can go to safe areas where they've got firefighting support. I encourage people over the next couple of days, even as people are struggling to want to just get back home, to understand this is a dangerous situation, this is about protecting lives, and we just encourage people, please heed the warnings, heed the messages, listen to the advice, look at the sources of information, the official sources of information, listen to the official radios stations about what is happening. I cannot understate just how significant again this weekend potentially is for communities down here, all across Victoria again as we see new fires, but particularly the communities here. So when people are making an announcement about not being able to get in or not being able to get out of communities, it's because it's based on people's safety. So please follow that advice. Look closely as we get closer to Saturday's conditions about the advice that's going to affect you. And finally, just again, our thoughts are with everyone out there who is doing an incredible job keeping communities together. Firefighters, our SES, our volunteers, our Red Cross, our career services, and also those families who are doing it tough, and especially those who are very isolated at the moment. Know that we are doing everything we can to get you what you need to meet your basic needs and to provide a long-term recovery process here. Questions?
Yesterday there were 4 people unaccounted for.
Remains unchanged. There are still 4 people whose whereabouts cannot be ascertained. There are still 4 people whose whereabouts is not known. We have grave fears for their safety. As soon as we can update you any further, we will do so, but we have no further updates. Similarly, we can say to you that there's been significant property loss, but we can't give you an accurate picture of exactly how many structures have been damaged, homes that have been razed. Those disaster assessments, those impact assessments are being made as we speak. That's a complex job, very difficult when you've got an active fire ground. Smoke and safety of those who make those assessments, more often than not from the air, has got to be paramount. But as soon as we can provide you with further information and a clearer picture of the impact of these fires, then we will do so. But it kind of makes the point I made at the start. This is still a going fire. Its impacts are not ever going to be fully known until it isn't. And this weekend poses a really significant threat, a really significant challenge, and we will see further fire activity in and around areas that have already been burnt. We will see new starts. We will see a really dynamic and complex and potentially dangerous set of circumstances over the weekend. We've just got to make sure that it's not a tragic set of circumstances by everyone doing as they're asked, and always not doing the convenient thing, letting people back in to see their homes, for instance. And I know everyone wants to do that, but if that's not safe, you just can't allow that to happen.
Premier, given it's now been 3 days until these people were last seen, surely it'd be a miracle that we do.
Oh, look, I'm not going to become a commentator on whether people are in a position to be able to survive 2 or 3 days. At the moment, you've got patchy comms, so power's off, mobile phones are out in lots of different places. These are isolated communities, many of them. They're very small communities, and some of the people who are missing, we simply don't know what has happened to them, or we can't therefore speculate other than to say we do have grave fears for their safety, and as soon as we have more to say, then of course we will.
Do we know where they're from?
We're not going to speculate on which communities they're from, which is exactly where we were at yesterday. I understand why you asked the question, but it's not appropriate to be speculating. There's 4 people that are unaccounted for. If that number changes, if we have any more information to provide to you when next we speak to you, of course we will.
Premier, are you now satisfied?
Well, as I've said to you, I'm not going to speculate on which community. Well, yes, it is, because, well, I'm not providing details of where those people might have been last seen or where we believe those people might live. That is not in any way appropriate, and I understand why the question is asked, but that was the position yesterday and that remains our position today. When we have confirmed information, when we have more to offer you, then absolutely we will, but we're just not in a position to be able to do that now.
Have authorities been
Everyone will get a chance, it's all fine.
Have authorities been able to get into those areas yet to search where they were last seen?
No, I think that there are some areas where we believe people are missing or people are unaccounted for. Victoria Police have been able to get access there. Firefighters have had access in there as well. Everything is being done to try and establish the whereabouts of these people and to deal with anybody else who we may not know about. That's the other issue. There are some parts of this fire ground, very significant parts, where we've not been able to get in there yet. So we are making assessments about the impact of these fires right now on property, and indeed we do, as I said, have grave fears for at least 4 people, but we can't rule out that number may grow. It's a very dynamic set of circumstances that we face, and we simply haven't got into a number of areas.
Just to confirm though, sorry Premier, just to make sure I heard
Sure.
you correctly, you said that authorities have been able to get into some of the areas.
Some of them,
where
yes.
These people have been missing, but not all of them.
Correct.
Thank you, Pat.
Have you had a
Premier,
chance
can
to
I-
inspect the fire-affected areas yourself, or do you intend to, Premier?
We're going to go and have a look from the air. We don't want to get into Mallacoota today. We probably could go down there, but I don't want to be necessarily diverting people from their urgent task, which is to provide food, water, shelter, and of course we've got flare-ups in that fire last night. That is very much a going fire, and there's a lot of work got to be done between now and the weekend before that next wave of hot weather. We'll go up and have a look from the chopper today, but we'll be back. Don't worry about that. And as soon as we can get in without diverting resources, obviously we'll be there to stand with those, not just those who have been affected directly, but indeed the entire town.
Are you hoping to evacuate people from Mallacoota before the weekend's hot weather?
I might let Andrew speak to that.
So we're exploring all our options in relation to Mallacoota, and certainly to look at evacuating some people from Mallacoota by sea is an option that we're seriously considering at the moment.
But is the HMAS Choules intended to be acting as a mass evacuation vessel, or just to take those who really need to get out?
It doesn't have the current capacity for everyone at Mallacoota. My understanding is it has a capacity of 1,000 people. So if we were to do that, we would certainly be prioritising those that would be leaving.
So people in Mallacoota shouldn't assume that once the ship's there, they'll be out there, they're next on board to get out.
No, we will work through a process with the community, You know, the CFA have done a great job. There's been a number of community meetings down there, some great engagement, and we'll work through a proper process.
So people could still be stuck in Mallacoota on Saturday?
That is the case, that some people could still be in Mallacoota on Saturday.
In terms of the structure losses, the last update we had yesterday was 43. Is there any rough indication of how that number's grown over the months?
No, we're still saying significant losses across East Gippsland. We will talk about 24 structures in Buchan and Buchan South, and 19 in Sarsfield, and I mentioned the sort of 10 to 15 up at Cudgewar in the Corryong fire. Those numbers, that's as a result of helicopters flying over, very difficult conditions, and it's not until we can actually get people on the ground, when it's safe to do so, that we can actually confirm whether it's an outbuilding, a large shed, or someone's actual home. So there's a long way to go, because it's a dangerous fire ground.
Are you now satisfied that you have the right firefighting equipment to fight these fires, or does Victoria and indeed Australia need to update their firefighting equipment?
I think what was demonstrated when these fires came through and when the change happened overnight on Monday, you will not stop these fires. What we talk about, when you start to get fire danger ratings up into that extreme area, fires are fast moving, they're uncontrollable, they're unpredictable. You're not going to put these fires out. That's the fact. So that's why, in the lead up to Monday, that's why we were putting out that messaging. You know, we drew a line on a map where we said that people were in danger and we wanted people to be out of that particular area. So you are not going to put those fires out. You're not going to put these fires out now. It's going to be nature started these fires. It's going to be nature that stops these fires.
Can I just add one thing to that issue? So, just, you know, it's hard at the moment because none of us can really get in and have a look. But what we do know from the CFA and what we do know from forest fire management staff on the ground out there is that there have been significant saves in this fire. So I think in some of the most extreme conditions, you know, I've heard people talk about hearing like a hurricane coming towards them, and that's what it's like, that our firefighters have done an extraordinary job. They have the best equipment. We go through a process all the time of the best possible equipment for our firefighters, volunteers and career, but they have done an exceptional job out there, and they have had significant saves right across communities, and that'll become evident as people are able to get back in.
Minister, I don't deny that they haven't done a great job out there. Absolutely, everyone's praising them from the communities I've been into. The question is, has Victoria and indeed Australia got the right equipment to be fighting fires in the current climate and the future climate?
Well, what I would say as somebody who works closely with the CFA, the MFB, for career and volunteers around equipment issues, we have and we update our equipment constantly. One of the big things that came out of the Royal Commission for Black Saturday was interoperability between our agencies so that we can use equipment across our agencies, where that's what we've been doing as well. So in terms of the aircraft, one of the reasons we lease the aircraft is because we know each year we can get the best possible aircraft with the best technology. We've been leading the way on night bombing as well. I'm very confident that we have the resources and with the equipment, but we do this every year. We assess this and make sure that we continually ensure our firefighters and our aviation capacity is the best that we can provide.